And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, Gungans, droids, and all you undying zombie night troopers out there, to today's video where we're talking about the brand new first character into this new Ahsoka series era for Star Wars Galaxy Heroes, the Night Trooper. And let's just say, yeah, over the next couple months for sure, this guy is gonna be deadly, and we can only assume things are going to get even crazier for the future of the Imperial Remnants. Capital Games doing yet again some very interesting stuff, making sure that this guy is going to be really good even before he gets to that ultimate destination where he's trying to go, wherever this Imperial Remnant team is going to be heading off to. But right now, I want to show you what you can do with him right here, right now, before whatever that future may be. So come on in, everyone. Great seeing. I hope you guys are ready. So get strapped in, pull up a cup of Java juice, and let's get chit-chatting about this guy. There's a lot of stuff that we need to cover for today. First things first, before we talk about teams, the overall gameplay, the things I like, don't like about this character, where it currently sits, let's first quickly talk about the mods. Now, this is, of course, preliminary modding that we're going to be running for the Night Trooper, which I will be adding to our ultimate spreadsheet for a more permanent location. But right now, you're going to want to lock in as much offense and potency on this guy. Maybe potency will get phased out whenever we start seeing the Omicron in action and the final team in the future. But right now, you want to make sure he's applying his new debuff Blight, and you want to make sure you are landing some hot damage out there with that offense. Now, the first thing I want to get out there before we start rolling some gameplay, the biggest downside to this character, and it took me a minute to kind of get settled in with this idea, because just when you look at it, you assume this should have an Empire tag. This should have an Imperial Trooper tag. Neither of them, as you can see, only the Imperial Remnant and the Night Sister tag are allowed on this character, which means you can't use this with Thrawn lead, which kind of blows your mind. You can't use the Night Trooper with the current Thrawn we have. You can't use it with the Super Commando. Garsak, the Super Commando's unique ability, gets turned off. You can't use it of Lord Vader. You can't use it of Emperor Palpatine. You are basically stuck with two teams, which are basically this. The go-to right now is the Imperial Remnant with Dark Trooper Gideon. You can't even use the OG Gideon lead because it requires Imperial Troopers. You can't use it with that. And also, by the way, you can't use it of Iden, and you can't use it of Veer. So literally, this is all you got, as we're going to discuss here today. But I will say safely, I do think even before the Omicrons and the future Imperial Remnant stuff, I think Dark Trooper Moff Gideon will see a nice, steady boost in a forward direction, making this guy a lot better. But let's go ahead, start chit-chatting about the gameplay. We're going to separate this into two sections. We're going to start off with the no datacrons, and then we're going to talk about the feature datacron for this guy, where you're basically going to be one-tapping Galactic Legends, nuking out entire enemy teams. Yeah, that's a little crazy, but let's start talking about more in depth on this Night Trooper with what we currently have in the game. Right now, the whole goal of Night Trooper is to get tons of Blight on the enemy team. And Blight is kind of like a new version of the Plague, where it reduces health steal by a crazy amount, but it also makes the enemy character take bonus damage whenever they lose Terminator from an enemy. Yeah, which is gonna be a big deal. However, the problem that we're seeing right now with the current situation with no Omicron and no whatever future team this might fit in, it's kind of hard to get the Blight out there right now. You gotta basically get Blight from getting the basic, the shambling shot out there as much as possible. With this shambling shot, anytime he uses the basic ability, he's gonna be giving himself a stack of Blight, but it's gonna get a lot crazier with the Omicron and later on down the road with the Datacron. So right now, you can't really use Share My Suffering, which is supposed to spam out the Blight onto the enemy team. But as we're gonna see with the Omicron, you're gonna get a lot more ways. But right now, if you're playing this on manual, you're using this outside of Grand Arena, no Omicron, no Datacron, the only thing you can really do is do a basic a lot, get it to assist a lot with Scout Trooper, for example. And by the way, can't even assist, or OG Moff Gideon's control the situation. Again, really knowing how they overcondition this character. But then we have this ability, March of the Undying. Before we start getting into more in depth on the Blight and how to maximize its efficiency with it, one thing that we're really seeing with March of the Undying, it's kind of a nice ability to have. Damages all enemies, allows him to get alert, which allows him to get turn meter whenever an ally is getting turn meter. So again, getting more turns out there, which means more opportunities to spam that Blight. And What's nice as well is you're gonna be able to apply stun and vulnerable on the enemy with the least amount of turn meter, and then you can call someone else to assist and remove 5% turn meter, which is again why we're gonna wanna have potency on this guy. He's got ways to increase his potency, and I'm sure other ways down the road, but you wanna make sure you're getting the blight on him. You wanna make sure you're getting the turn removal. You wanna make sure you're getting the stun. You wanna make sure you're getting the vulnerable to get the most output. But then really the thing that really puts us together is that unique ability, Inevitable End, which by the way, gives you 35% potency, which is nice. And whenever Night Troopers damage, and again, this is why we really want to mod for offense, because there are going to be plenty of ways for this to ramp up here. You're going to get 10% offense and 5 speed anytime Night Troopers damage for 1 turn until they are critically hit, which luckily we have ways to try to reduce critical hits through, for example, critical chance down, which is nice. But one of the really interesting things about this guy is anytime an enemy recovers health, he recovers 100% health. So if you can do it, I can do it too. And enemies can't recover health from health steal when targeting Night Troopers. So you can't try to get easy health steal recoveries just by feeding up the Night Trooper. And on top of that, at the start of Night Trooper's turn, gain 10% in critical damage and defense penetration for each stack of blight for 1 turn. And this is why it's kind of hard to realize this, because it's not a lot of ways to get the blight out there. But we have a couple ways if you want to get some cheater cron stuff that really pump out that blight out there. And when you get 5 stacks of blight, they gain frenzy for 2 turns again. Trying to get as many turns as possible, trying to get big damage out there, and more importantly, get even more blight, which by the way, this Omicron, which is for a Grand Arena, which you know, that makes me a happy, happy man. This gets 100% more max health, 35 extra speed, immune to turn meter reduction, and this is why, for the most part, we're showing most of our gameplay of Dark Trooper off Gideon. We're going to talk about Night Sisters in a moment. You could use them with Night Sisters. But the reason why this is primarily going to be a Dark Trooper Gideon thing, because if the ally in the leader slot is an Imperial Remnant, you inflict a stack of blight until the end of the encounter at the start of each Imperial Remnant ally's turn to a random enemy, and whenever an enemy is inflicted with blight this way, you reduce the cooldown of Share My Suffering by 1. Now, taking that with the Datacrons now we have a lot more ways between Omicrons and Datacrons to get a lot more blight on the enemy field, and that's something we cannot realize right now. One thing that was very evident, this sort of feels like a Padawan Obi-Wan, where it's like, yeah, it's okay, pre-Omicron, pre-Datacron. You throw on the Datacron, things get a lot more interesting, just like what we're going to be seeing with this. Same thing with Staff. Staff wasn't really all that special pre-Omicron, but the second you throw on the Omicron, Staff is a lot of fun inside a Grand Arena. Don't even get me started on the Datacron, which is going to be going away shortly here. This is the same thing with Night Trooper. We don't have the 100% ideal team, although Dark Trooper Moff Gideon will be a nice place to utilize the Night Trooper for the time being. I think it's a much better placement than the Stormtrooper. You get a lot more damage. The blight kind of messes up the enemy, and there's some pretty decent damage. And when you have that Omicron, it's going to feel even more evident, being able to spam all that blight on the enemy field, and also reducing the cooldown of Share My Suffering, which again does solid damage and spams even more blight on the enemy field. But what we're seeing right now behind us is Capital Games' new strategy at work. They understand that, especially when we're kind of getting into a new era of content, we're still waiting on Captain Enoch. We're still waiting for the Death Trooper zombie, the Death Trooper Peridia, as they're going to be calling it. If you missed the road ahead, well, you better get on top of that car in the top right-hand corner in case you're vacationing and it's cave-in Tatooine. A lot more stuff coming. So they've been trying to supplement the lackluster power in the foreseeable future with a Datacron. Padawan Obi-Wan had the first exclusive Datacron that you only can get through the marquee by whaling the 6 stars and doing the rest of it free to play just by farming the event for the week. And then they're doing it again with the Night Trooper, where I think the Night Trooper is okay before Datacron and Omicron, but man, the Datacron basically does what you just saw there. Ramps up the damage in insane ways. Where you're going to be nuking out entire enemy teams, one-tapping Galactic Legend. And basically what's going on, we're kind of still getting used to the new Datacron set. Jury's out on what's going to be the very, very best that we're going to be currently having for this team. But there's obviously some go-tos. This is going to be a go-to. Dark Trooper Gideon's going to have a lot of fun with this, primarily on the level 6 with this Datacron that you get. Whenever attacker critically hits, they gain another turn, or they attack again. So you're going to get double taps here. And then you're going to get stacking defense penetration. And they deal bonus true damage when they attack on a turn. But more importantly, This level 9 down here, you get even more potency, even more speed. And anytime an enemy is afflicted with blight, they inflict themselves with another stack. So you're double timing the blight, which is going to be a big deal through the unique ability, through just the application that Night Trooper does throughout his kit. And on top of that, whenever an enemy that already has blight is inflicted with another stack of blight by an ally, inflict blight on another random enemy that doesn't already have it. Again, you're just trying to multiply it. And then finally, these last two bits right here. Whenever Night Trooper uses Shambling Shock, they get even more blight. But the thing that is the cherry on top is that last clause. Whenever an ally or enemy gains or is inflicted with blight, which is going to be a lot. This is not even with the Omicron. And we're already hitting for 1.7 million. An AoE that's hitting for 600,000 per individual. Once you implement that Omicron, which is going to spam more blight on every Imperial Remnant turn, this is going to be nuts. Whenever an ally or enemy gains or is inflicted with blight, Night Trooper recovers 20% health and gains 25% offense, stacking for 2 turns. Well, let's just put it this way. Just 4 stacks of blight, you're looking at 100 offense. When you're going to be having 20, 30 stacks of blight, yeah, that's a lot of damage that you're going to be seeing right there. So even though right now, Night Trooper is not like transforming the game because we don't have the Omicron, we don't have the ideal team. But as we're seeing with the Dark Trooper Moff Gideon, we're getting a lot of damage out there just with the Datacron. So I foresee in the next couple months, while we build up the rest of these Ahsoka characters, we have some Night Sisters coming, other Imperial Remnants coming. This is gonna be something that you're gonna be able to utilize very well in the meantime. Again, if you will to get the 6 stars and get the 7 stars for free, with the events gonna be ending here in the next couple days, no other way to get this Datacron. So that's the only problem that you're going to be having right there. Now, most of our gameplay has been a Dark Trooper Moff Gideon, but again, I want to emphasize you could technically use the Night Trooper with the Night Sisters, but again, that Omicron's not going to work as well because it only works at Imperial Remnant Lead. That's number 1. And the number 2, the other thing that we're seeing, Dark Trooper Moff Gideon gives a lot of ways to amplify the damage a bit more. Again, not to say you can't use Night Trooper 1000. I think there might be an area of opportunity where maybe Night Trooper in Grand Arena maybe could get help out with maybe making Jabba a more consistent one-shot counter. Hard to say because you have to really be in Grand Arena to see that, but by far this is the way to go. But keep in mind, there's more stuff to come in the future. We know there are more Night Sisters coming, the Great Mothers, Morgan Elsbeth, and they already said that maybe Night Trooper can fit into this new Night Sister team. Right now, I thought maybe we could try to make a secondary Night Sister team with like Asajj and leftovers. Not yet, but maybe in the future. And more importantly, even though Night Trooper is doing all right, you see the gameplay, even a Datacron, I'm assuming Omicron's gonna make Gideon even better. There's a future with the Captain Enoch, a Death Trooper Peridia, and furthermore, the last thing that we really gotta put on the radar, how is it possible that we have no announcement of anything Thrawn related? The fact that Night Trooper has 0 synergy with Thrawn because there's no Empire tag and Thrawn overall just doesn't have anything direct to it, makes us want to believe that there's going to be another Thrawn down the road, whether it's a legendary galactic legend or a Thrawn rework, a Thrawn touch-up, a Thrawn Omicron. So there's a lot more to be had in the future, and we're only scratching the surface. And the fact that we're only at the surface without the new stuff, the other new stuff in the game, kind of shows that we have a much bigger future for this Night Trooper. And lastly, just real quick, let's just quickly talk about Zetas, talk about Omicrons, in case you are in the market to start upgrading this character. But really, as I said, the only reason to upgrade this right now if you're trying to get ready for the Galactic Legend Ahsoka requirements, which again, required at Relic 7 for Galactic Legend Ahsoka Tano, or you want to make your Dark Trooper Gideon at least a little bit better, you want to get that Datacron to make things even more nutty. The first thing we want to talk about is that Omicron. The Omicron right here, I'm going to say it's going to be pretty important. There's a whole level that we're not appreciating of Night Trooper because it's hard to get blight out there, pre-Omicron, pre-Datacron. This is going to make it way more possible. It's going to reduce the cooldown of Share My Suffering. He's going to be spamming this a ton, and especially with that Datacron, he's going to be one-shotting tons of fools left and right. And on top of it, we have 2 other Zetas that we should talk about here. The first one that we have is the March of the Undying, where the Zeta ability, the enemy with the least turn meter is stunned and inflicted vulnerable. It feels good. Don't get me wrong. I think it's all right, but I think if you are going to apply at least one Zeta, you probably want to apply it on the inevitable end, where the Night Trooper is going to get stacking critical damage, stacking defense penetration, and on top of that, you get the Frenzy on that Zeta for the inevitable end. But you know what? We got to wait for Grand Arena. I don't know if this guy's going to make a big appearance in 3v3, maybe the Datacron. You know what? Probably will. But I'm really interested in seeing the 5v5 future of this team. But hey, as I said, all that we do know, guaranteed, that this Datacron that they give you, it is explosive, my friends. So excited for the future of the Ahsoka Tano characters. We have so many more characters being baked up for us. What do we have, Gary? We have Baylan Skoll as the next epic confrontation. We know that Galactic Legend Ahsoka's around the corner. We have the Great Mothers, Morgan Elsbeth, a new Death Trooper. We have a Captain Enoch, and we just know that there's going to be a new Thrawn sometime in the future. But you know what else I do know? I know that anytime I have the honor and privilege of hanging out with you guys, it really makes you want to say how it's great to be in the Empire today. Oh, it's great to be in the Empire today. The sun never sets.